we have been concluding in the right speech area of the Eightfold Path. And so today we would move along a little bit into skillful action. Along this Eightfold Path, sort of the way that it's divided up. Right action, there's right speech, right action, and right livelihood that sort of complete the morality section of the Eightfold Path. We started with the wisdom section. Now we're in the morality section. And, with right speech, we cultivate steps not only because of their ethical behavior, but also because the essence means awakening ourselves. And so it's pretty impossible to meditate and, we can't separate meditative wisdom from the moral understanding, really, that makes it possible. And the Buddha expresses this integrated path of practice in one of his famous verses in the Dhammapada. Pretty simple. Avoid what is unskillful, do what is good, purify the mind. And so, especially in times of great cultural changes, and there's ways of sort of questioning the old norms and values, and sort of re-articulating the importance of personal integrity and responsibility, so that we don't get lost in the confusion of our desires and our impulses. And so it's said that what moved the Buddha the most after his enlightenment was seeing people seeking happiness, yet doing the very things that brought about suffering. Shantideva said, "We're like senseless children who shrink from suffering but love its causes." Now that's interesting, isn't it? And so that's where right action comes in, that all of these steps of right speech, right action, and right livelihood revolve around basically letting go or abstaining from unskillful acts and, avoiding what is unskillful. And so each one also has its positive expression, doing what is good. Right action is cultivating the clarity and the strength of mind to let go and abstain from actions of the body that cause harm to ourselves and to others. It was said, he said, as was handed down, and what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from what's not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. So here we have right action. It's the precepts. So, so much of what the Buddha taught seems so obvious, don't kill, don't harm, don't steal. Still, as we try to apply the practice, how we practice this in our lives, we can usually come to sort of this edge of our understanding of the commitment that it is. And that's challenging to be there. Like oftentimes practicing the precepts is fine as long as it doesn't make us uncomfortable. And it can be a challenging place to be when we've decided, that's probably a sign that we should investigate them more deeply. So that this kind of points to the steps on the path of actual practices and things to understand and investigate in our lives, rather than taking it for granted that we're basically good people and then, don't look any further. So even the simple one of abstaining from physical harm, the first part of this right action is abstaining from killing or physically harming others or ourselves. And It includes people not killing other people and not killing animals for sport or for pleasure, and not killing living beings because we don't like the way they look, you know. So at first it sort of seems hard, and it is. So we investigate, and we'll go over each of the next couple of weeks over what all the 5 precepts are. But this consequence that we notice within ourselves when we are conscientious and mindful and refrain from taking life, even if it's the life of something that's small, like an ant or a mosquito. In those moments of restraint, we are considering the welfare of that being. And I know for myself, it always feels better and more connected and more loving to, remove the spider that's in my house. Or the other day I was taking a tango lesson with somebody, and it's in the woods, and they have these beetles. I haven't seen these beetles for a long time. I mean, I think they almost might be called stink bugs. I forget. But they're hard-shelled and sort of triangular-like, and they buzz and they fly fast and they make a lot of noise. And they were all over the screen and all over the porch and walking all over the plants. And the person whose studio it was visiting, and he was a little taken aback by all of these insects sort of flying around, So, but I managed to scoop up a few of them and, let them go outside. And it's tricky, like mosquitoes can be that way too. It's like, do I save the life of this being even though it's causing me, a lot of harm and making me discomfort? But, I know living in this world, we as lay people, sometimes we have to face these compelling situations. Like, there's malaria carrying mosquitoes, and there's carpenter ants that destroy our houses, and there's deer ticks that might be carrying Lyme disease. And so, do we just say be happy, or does killing in those circumstances secure some greater good? And so really it's just a lot of care and awareness for ourselves is needed, as this idea of greater good has been used sometimes to rationalize, very harmful actions. And yet at times it might indicate that, maybe that's an appropriate response. It's something that we have the commitment to ourselves about. And so, it refers to our volition actions. So where there's an intention to take a life. Bye, Doug. So there's the difference between whether there's an intention or not. And there's times when we sort of inadvertently take a life without any intention to kill. We step on insects and we don't know it. Sometimes a surgeon is going to lose their patient. So this isn't considering breaking a precept. But it's challenging, and it's challenging within our own hearts. Like some sects of Buddhism really support vegetarianism. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm just thinking there are times that we have intention to kill, like a mosquito that's stinging us or drawing our blood, or we get scared of an insect that we don't know about, and we want to remove it from our presence. Yeah. So there are those times, and that may not be right speech, but that is something that probably most people experience at one time or another.
Yeah. And in taking the precepts, those times that we are intentionally killing, that is not right action. That
Right.
yeah. So, we have a few moments that we're increasing into our not so great karma. And that happens. Yeah, it's a balance. It's a balance. Hmm. Yeah, I mean in including in right action is all of the precepts of non-harming, non-stealing. We'll go through all the rest of them too, but right speech is in there, not sexual misconduct and not intoxication, and it's just we choose if we are wanting to benefit from, I don't know, a happier life, because we don't have this mind stream that's attached to, like, I've looked at some bugs sometimes, as you've mentioned, and now I'm pretty devoted to not killing any of them. But there were certain times in the past where, or if there's a sudden thing, like something crawls by you on your counter, like in Hawaii, you get a cockroach going quickly by. But and I used to kill them, and they are really hard to kill, and they really make you feel bad when you kill them. So it's a lot easier to catch them and let them out, and acknowledge that they have freedom, and that they didn't suffer or die at my expense. So I'm
generally I'm of the catch and release mode. Not with fish, I don't even catch those, but spiders and bugs that are in my house. And I guess I'm struggling with two things. In the past, I had a yellow jacket nest in my garden, and my dog got attacked by them. Traumatized by the yellow jackets that attached themselves to his leg and kept stinging him and everything. They're just horrendous things, and he was so scared of his yard for so long after that he wouldn't go out there. In the end, I had to spray something into their hole because they were so near the tree that was right next to the porch. So so the question that attaches to that piece is the degree of harm that you're saving in that greater good scenario irrelevant at all, or is it just an absolute principle? And then the current situation is the gophers tearing up my yard. That I've just been allowing to do that. I know that there's a way to stop this. I haven't done it. It's sort of big mounds in the front next to the driveway. Everywhere. And that's an aesthetic thing. I think the first situation is more compelling but I doubt that in this schema there is a more to it. It feels like it's just absolute, and you have to deal with the consequences of any creature living.
Yeah, it's. I think it is. In general, it's as you are responsible for your own happiness, and if you're going to be a monk, then yes, absolutely. But as lay people, there's a little more leeway that it's about the intention and how dramatic is the intention. That, this gets you into the whole discussion about vegetarianism. And yet, at least in the Buddhist time, it was more like if it wasn't killed for that monk, because they had to go for alms and get their food, and they get whatever the villagers have. That could be frog legs and rice, or other various insects and meat products and whatever. But the absolute rule was basically, if the person as a monastic not involved in direct killing, that it's not directly killed for them. It's providing food for their whole family, and then they are generously giving to the monks. And so, they eat what's given to them. So it's hard to figure out how to apply that to our lives, because on the one hand, we can say, well, this meat that's at Fred Meyer's was not directly killed for me. But then on the other hand, as a consumer, it is killed for me. I mean, it's my consumption of it that is participating in, a living being being harmed. So, and yet, eating meat doesn't really fit into the definition of killing in at least in the Thai forest monk tradition, and some are more strict than others. So it's more like, if we're interested in our spiritual progress, then we want to try to follow the 5 precepts of abstaining from killing and stealing and false speech, the killing one has to do with intent. So I had to decide that about the wasps' nests that are outside my window. And then we researched what the wasps were, and they didn't cause any harm, even if they were aggravated. They were a certain kind of wasp, and they were happily up, they weren't down in my yard like your dog. And at some point we just make these comparative things, like not having my dog stung anymore, or me if I walked over one, is a little more important to me than whether I'm going to kill this group of beings. And we can only make those decisions, for ourselves, within ourselves, and see how we feel about it. Like, I was ready to call the exterminator because I didn't want us sitting down in our patio and have the wasps dive bomb us, or our guests. So, are we protecting others? But then, I called a beekeeper person, and we looked it up, and we found out that they won't be of harm. I mean, maybe accidentally they would be, but it didn't happen because they stayed high up. So they're still out there. But then they said, at the end of the season, knock their nests down. So I don't know how it goes for wasps in the ground, but the same idea might apply if this batch got you, but you wait until this batch is gone, and then you remove whatever you can find where they were. But it's a moral dilemma, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But we're contributing to our own harmlessness and our own practice of loving friendliness when we don't kill. And it usually makes our minds feel better. But it's case by case analyzed, I would say, for what your own heart and mind can tolerate. And sometimes we find these things. It was fine last year, but it's not so good this year. I didn't mind killing something last year, but now I really don't want to harm something. So it's a work in progress.
And I think like 38 years ago, my youngest is 37 actually. So at one point, because what I was thinking about, I've had a wasp thing in the ground also, Margaret, and then once a year there's this place that gets ants, and they're going to come straight into the house, and it's going to be a friggin' mess, and it's not happening, Am I killing them right then and there? No, but I'm putting out ant stakes so I'm getting rid of them. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But my Jessica was a very animal person. I mean, she just and I'll never forget when she said to me once. She said, "You know, ants have a life to live too, Mom." And I just went, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
they do, absolutely.
Mhm.
So yeah, just wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
They have a life to live, so do wasps.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's the honoring of the importance of beings.
Yeah. And we just have care and kindness, and we, try to notice what our intention is.
Yes.
And, in Hawaii, I used to, wish them to be liberated when I killed them. Or at least wish them to have another happy life.
Yes. Do a little bit of a ceremony.
Anybody else have something they want to share? We're 4:45 already, so almost 4:45. Jasmine.
Yeah. I feel like what I want to share feels a little insignificant in light of like the not what we're talking about.
That's okay. We're not comparing anything.
My partner and I recently split up, and it's something I'm having a really challenging time with. This is someone I imagined like having children with, which was never an imagination before. And I know that we care about each other deeply, and I know that like what I wanted was more than what he wanted. I'm having a hard time like having loving thoughts towards this person who I know loves me, but not in the same way. And I'm trying to stay really grateful for what I learned about what I learned, and I need some help with finding that loving compassion for.
Yeah.
I don't know, it showed me how attached I had become to this external person, this external thing, this dream of what a life together could look like. And it's showing me like in a really sharp way about how changing things are.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Jasmine. I'm sure we all hold you in so much compassion. And, sometimes the grieving process just has to be there for a while. And this person, might not make their way into your circle of compassion, for a while. I mean, the least you can maybe do is wish that they be happy. But, really what's happening in your heart is what you tend to do. And that's taking care of yourself as best you can with kindness and compassion for whatever's arising. And, you never know. Like you said, you learn different, you go, okay, I'm going to relive this, a million times. Well, this time what I might relive is I really learned my attachment around something, or I really learned that I could be fully vulnerable and open. There's so many learning opportunities, but at the same time is holding yourself with compassion and kindness while, sort of going through the grieving process. You've probably heard me tell before about my 11-year relationship with somebody that Sherry knows, and when we got divorced, it took me like 3 7-day retreats for a year and a half to really let go and to see what I might have gained from it. And it was like an equitable letting go. The circumstances weren't so great that catalyzed it, but it was still an equitable letting go, because we realized that we just, while we were joined together at the hip, we were also not really the right person for each other in the long run. It is hard to see that, because emotion, really takes over. And so even if there's an inkling of mindfulness going, oh, I see this now, and it's okay. I'm going to cry until I can't cry anymore. And then I'm probably going to be so pissed off at myself for crying so much. And, it's a litany of emotions and things that flow through, while with mindfulness, whenever you can muster it to see, okay, that some equanimity. Can I be with things just the way they are right now? Even this. And it's a long-term process. I mean, who knows how long, but I'm sorry you're in the middle of it so much. Yeah.
I feel like when I can zoom out enough, the biggest feeling I have is gratitude for like this chance to be shown how much I can love, how big my heart is. While it really sucks to feel like it's been taken away.
Yeah.
I know that that's still part of me.
What an amazing insight.
Yeah.
Truly. Because that's your heart. That is who you are. That you allowed this largesse and this encompassing of another heart. That's you. And, we just, our culture, and we, throw this on other people. And then, I don't know what Candle was saying. I mean, I'm 5 years, 5 years out of my separation. And, I still, what I deal with is different, but I can, I still get upset about it. And as at myself for enabling, I somehow am able to kind of let him be over here, and not as mad at him, but I really question myself and my enabling. And so equanimity is my big word, and my big place of trying to go to. And I think I shared with everybody a couple of weeks ago that I've learned this new thing of, because I call other people darling and sweetheart and honey all the time, and I've started using it on myself. Well, darling, let's go do this. All right, honey. I mean, this is how I'm talking to myself now, which is just such a gentler way of holding our own hearts, right? So.
Thanks, Sherry. Margaret, I think you wanted to say something.
Let the other Margaret.
Yeah, the other Margaret.
And I.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to say what, listening to Jasmine and to Sherry and Candle,